know that he also has a reason why he is contesting. So in other words, in the Kenyan elections, you could see that the other two candidates really never had any chance at all. If you went by the opinion polls, you went by the general public perceptions, some of us who travel to Kenya every once in a while, you would, in any discussions in Kenya, nobody would be talking about the other two candidates. You'd be talking about Raila and Ruto. Yeah, so I think that for him to come out and concede, it's also political. I mean, it's tactical. If you consider this point, one, I think for the Ruto camp, they reinforce their narrative that we are the ones who have won. So there's a perception element, and I think Wahiga can also use that to negotiate some consideration from the Ruto camp. So I think it's a good political calculation for him, and these are politicians, so they are making political calculations. I think it's a smart move for him to concede. He says
the manifesto of Gano and the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza are literally almost the same, believing in quite a number of things. It's just
I must concede that I didn't pay attention to Wahiga's manifesto. But I was basically looking at
the same. Why did he
why did he contest?
He has a few.
I was basically looking at Raila and Ruto, and I think these two gentlemen had a very clear agenda. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I have been engaged. I follow Kenyan politics and economy very closely, having worked there for 3 years at the end of the 1990s, having seen Kenya under Moi almost being like Uganda, because the elections under Moi, you would know that if you had elections, Kanu would win. In fact, these dictatorships operate in such a way that for Kenya, you had reached the point where Moi could probably wake up and say, and tell Kenyans that we have organized elections and Kanu has won, and they accept, even when the elections were not there. It's that bad at that point when you're operating. So having seen the transition that Kenya has made from Moi to where we are now, you really have to pay attention to their elections. You look at their economy, because Kenya is a big economy.
What are the underlying factors for that transition?
I can highlight about 3 of them. The first one is that Kenya has a strong private sector. It has a clear vested interest in the politics of the country. And the way the politics have emerged is that the private sector in Kenya is free to finance candidates. So in other words, individuals can make political contributions to the politicians who are contesting, for whom they subscribe to their agenda, and they will not be reprimanded. Their businesses will not be destroyed.
Okay.
Secondly, I believe that Kenya, their constitution was hard fought by the Kenyans. The 2010 constitution was hard fought by the Kenyans, because that's the time when I really used to be in Kenya. As they fought to push Moi out of power, there would be fights on the streets, because the fight against Moi dictatorship was led by the church, the Kenya Law Society, the Kenya Commission of Jurists, and the students at Nairobi University. That was like the coalition. So they would fight on the streets, and then when the country is at such a tense situation, they go to Kamukunji to discuss the transition. And then they would disagree, and they come back, and they fight, and they go back. So by 2010, they have this constitution. And I think that you can see Kenyans actively working to protect the gains that were made through that constitution-making process. When you compare it with Uganda, there are some 27 men who went, fought a war, captured power, and said, we are helping you to make a constitution. And we tried, made what I think was a fairly good constitution, no matter its imperfections, and we all, after the promulgation of the constitution, we all went and sat back, and the gentleman who signed on that constitution then started changing the rules up to where we are. The third point I would mention is that I think that Kenya has an advantage. It being a big economy, but also the seat of power for the international system. Yeah, Nairobi is the seat of power for the international system. All the United Nations agencies, the big companies, they are all based in Nairobi. So Kenya attracts more international attention, and actually even support, by the way.
Scrutiny?
And even scrutiny. So I think a combination of those three and many other factors make Kenya what it is. Let me make one last comment, by the way. I think that we normally underlook it. You can blame Moi for running a fairly autocratic system. What Moi did not do was to destroy the core institutions of state. So the public service in Kenya, even when Kenya was almost dysfunctional at the end of the Moi era, the public service remained intact and professional. And right now it is the one that is moving the country. The military remained apolitical, and it remained an independent institution. I think the one that was really the institution that was largely demobilized was the judiciary. But under the new constitution, the judiciary was reconstituted. Now, in Uganda here, I think that one of the things that the biggest disservice that President Museveni has done for us is that he has tried to demobilize the institutions of state, and now almost making the military take them over in many different ways. Okay. And that is really, that's like our biggest task on how do you decouple these institutions.
Those are the sausages that Joseph is talking about.
Yes, could get the checks and balances.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Kabuleta, looking at the entire process, because like I mentioned earlier on, an election is not the D-Day. It is the entire process, the before, the during, and the after. What are those issues that we would look up to Kenya with regard to how they organize the elections? Because theirs is every after 5 years, just like Uganda. But why do we continue to sing praises to a neighboring country, very, very close, that one thinks, why don't you just pick up the lessons and be able to have something as similar as them? What are they doing right?
No, first of all, I think Kenyans have to give a lot of thanks, so should I say, to Moi, because he read the signs of the times. He knew that the time of a one-party state and everything was coming to an end, and he did not have the desire to keep on fighting to be in government until he drops dead, unlike somebody whom we know. So at some stage, in the final term, he started negotiating.
You know, Joseph, when countries are really at the brink, people fear even mentioning the president. So Joseph saying someone that we know is not by mistake.
He's probably doing it intentionally not to be able to mention.
Let me tell you something. If there's anybody who doesn't fear anything, Museveni, you're looking at him right now. Absolutely nothing, Museveni, that Kabuleta fears. Nothing. So, but let's go ahead. So he realized that things were changing, as did other people, because all over, there was a time there was governing, people were governing all over the world. Even the Fidel Castros realized that, perhaps things are changing. Then he gave over to his brother and so on. There was a certain system of governance that had been so espoused through the 80s, and it was very popular especially among presidents who had led their countries to independence. They are the ones who felt, they fought for this position. Nobody has the right to take them away. Many of them had been imprisoned by the colonialists and so on. That's the Mugabe scenario. It reminds you how we spent 10 or 11 years in prison all the time, throughout the 30 or so years in prison. So it's all that. But now we have a scenario here which was unique, because Museveni did not lead us to independence, but he behaves like somebody who did. Because now those other presidents, all of them, even those who had led their countries to independence, like the late Kenneth Kaunda and what, after some time they realized governance was changing, and they were decent enough to hand it over to another generation and age away peacefully. But now Museveni is a totally different animal. Now, because of that, Uganda is suffering, because we kind of gave him a lot of trust in the first 10 years of his governance. So he had the chance to do what my colleague here is saying, to dismantle all the institutions, to personalize the army, to personalize finance. Now, one of the biggest instruments he uses right now to fight his political opponents is, financial persecution. Now, dare to contribute money to Kableta today and see if your business is going to survive tomorrow. You cannot. It will not survive. And you meet people who say, I like your ideas and so on, but thank you very much. Stay at a distance. Okay, don't come close to me. And you understand, because somebody has fought for, has worked hard for his empire, and he's not going to lose it because of you. So all that. So now, eventually, everything is held firmly in the palm of one man. Now, as he said, the Kenyans, first of all, you go to their business sector. You see how charged the political sector is right now, politics is. Go and see if any business has even slowed down in the process of all this. Nothing.
No, nothing.
People, the money men are making money. Everything is moving. The taxes are being paid. Everything is pushing on properly. The city is functioning properly as the elections go on. Now, you hear, when you go around and see the way the civil service and the business are operating, the election is some story somewhere in Bomas, Kenya. Everything here is working properly, but here everything comes to a standstill because of an election, of course, because of the state that we are in right now. But then there were also once in that state. But I was saying Moi had the decency to start negotiating his exit, and his exit was negotiated.
Yeah. And
it was clear that he was not going to be charged with anything that happened under his regime.
Okay.
Because there were all these commissions of inquiries about money, gold scams and so on, which once they got to the table of Kibaki, he said, we are looking forward, not backwards. So
do you think Uganda needs to get into such a situation of negotiating? Because I do remember there was a discussion about an amendment in Parliament of giving a safe exit of the president.
First of all, that's a sign of mature politics. That exit of a president, because there was a case, you remember, in Gabon, where the president surrendered power and organized an election, and he wasn't standing. And his Gambia, I think, his famous motto was, "I'm going to grow what I eat and eat what I grow." In other words, I'm going to the village. As soon as the first president took over, before even he had been sworn in, when this man still had the instruments of power, the other guy started now going for him, digging him up and what. So guess what happened? He refused to hand over power. And he said, no, now I'm still president. And now you bring confusion. Somebody has given you the opportunity to go ahead. Let him be. And now I know that might be tough for some people to take. But the truth is, that is what it takes to build a nation. If Kenya had started going and chasing after Moi for things which happened under his regime, they would not have gotten to the level of stability that at now.
They wouldn't.
So you just let the old man be. What happened, happened. Besides, anyway, things are different. The way governance was in the 80s is different from now. So it's difficult for somebody to say that I would have been president in the 80s and I would have governed, let's say, the way Kibaki did. Okay? Or let's say, the way you see in Kenya. No, it's different, because that time autocracy was almost the way to go. Everybody was autocratic, especially here in Africa. Now, it's changing all across. Elections are being held. People are winning and losing and all over the place. So now Moi, the fact that they decided to let him be, let everything that happened in that time be bygone, and then also the fact that Kibaki had the decency to just forget about that. But then also, he did something great. He brought back all the institutions that Moi had apparently destroyed. In the 10 years of Kibaki, I remember one specific incident where, the people who lead parastatals, government parastatals. A minister writes a cheat and tells somebody, these are the people who are supposed to be in the parastatals. The parastatal board tells him, basically gives him the middle finger and says, no, you don't have that power. But under Moi I had, but under Kibaki you don't. We are the party, it's supposed to be different. And now everybody expects, because they are used to the other system, everybody expects that that head of the parastatal is going to be in serious trouble. He's not. Eventually he has his way, and the minister coils and goes back to what he's supposed to do. And then in the process of time, institutions are rebuilt and rebuilt. So in those 10 years, a lot of things happened that reversed. And that's incredible, because Kibaki ran against Moi twice. Okay? and 97.
Yeah.
And Kibaki was part of his, he was finance minister and minister of economy or something. But he came and was at almost the same age mate, really, close to age mates. But their thinking was totally different. Totally different. And now that laid the foundation
of where Kenya is today.
Where Kenya is today.
All right, we'll be just getting back to the discussion in just a bit. Let's cross over to Kisumu, where Brenda Radido is standing by as Kenyans anxiously wait for the announcement of what is happening. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us. What is the mood as the clock ticks down to tomorrow midnight, which would rather be the deadline for the announcement by the IEBC?
Good morning, Mildred, Moody and Kisumu. I can say today is totally different. You can see happy faces of residents here as they stream into the central business district where I am right now. They're very hopeful. Some very hopeful, thinking that Raila Odinga will clinch this seat because they're saying that this is the closest one of their own, the son, can get to the seat of the presidency. But then also, we keep on reminding them not to forget the Deputy President, William Ruto of Kenya Kwanza, who is also having a lot of votes. I mean, we cannot say Raila Odinga will carry the day or Deputy President William Ruto will carry the day because the competition is tight. They're neck and neck when it comes to this presidential competition because as so far, I can confirm to you as of this morning, all the 30 Form A's and B's have already been confirmed, been verified by the IEBC, and there's less than 30 results yet to be concluded. When I'm talking about to be concluded, it means to be announced by the IEBC commissioners at the Bomas of Kenya that is playing host to the presidential election results. And so Form 34Cs are supposed to be 34Cs are supposed to be generated from Form 34B. I'm so sure, Mildred, residents of the East African community are wondering, what are these Form 34As, Form 34Bs? Now we are hearing again Form 34Cs. Now the Form 34A is a form that is supposed to be filled by the presiding officer at the polling station. Once the results have been tallied, the vote cast have been tallied, so the returning presiding officer has to write the results, tabulate it and write the results on the form. So that is what is called as Form 34A. Then the presiding officer has to transmit this electronically, and so these results are supposed to be picked by the IEBC returning officer, presidential returning officer, that is Wafula Chebukati. Then the other returning officers at the constituency and at the county level have to pick this Form 34As electronically. This paves way for the physical submission of the Form 34As, and so that is what has been happening at the Bomas of Kenya. Now, from this Form 34As brings in the generation of Form 34B that is supposed to be generated by the constituency returning officer and the county returning officer. And so now that is how we're bringing in what you're talking about, Form 34As and Form 34Bs. Now the Form 34C is supposed to be generated by the returning officer of the presidential election, that is Wafula Chebukati. And so that is why I'm saying that Form 34C is supposed to be generated from Form 34B. Now, Mildred, of importance is that Form 34B tallies the constituency results. That is what I've explained, bringing into the bath of the Form 34C, if I may put it that way. Now, IBC has until tomorrow, sorry for that, Mildred, IBC has until tomorrow to actually announce the presidential results that within the constitutional election timelines that have been given, because the 1 week of vote tallying tabulation begins after the votes have been cast. So the 1 week is supposed to end tomorrow. But just from the fact that IBC has actually finished confirming all the Form 34As and Form 34Bs, it's a clear indication. I don't want to say the results will be announced today, but it's just a clear indication that any time from today or tomorrow, Wafula Chebukati will be telling Kenyans who is the next fifth president of the Republic of Kenya. Now, the interest that ESC members have with this presidential elections of Kenya It is because, you know, Kenyans and the ESC, the East African community, want to know who will fit into the shoes of President Uhuru Kenyatta, because the President Uhuru Kenyatta has played a key role within the ESC community. I mean, he is the ESC chairperson. When you're also looking at Burundi and Rwanda, the sort of peacekeeping mission that is happening there, President Uhuru Kenyatta has also played a key role. So, I mean, it leaves a big gap for the next president who will be taking over from him. And so we want to see who is this man who is supposed to be taking over, you know, when it comes to fitting into the big shoes of President Uhuru Kenyatta. As of yesterday, we know that one of the presidential candidates, David Mwaure Wahiga, had considered defeat and said that he's supporting Deputy President William Ruto. And this has not gone well with some of his supporters and also some Kenyans, because people as the people who feel like there's a lot of mischief with that decision. He should have waited for the IBC to announce the results and then concede defeat, because that is what we have always witnessed. You know, results are announced and then the person who's lost the election concedes. And also the other last thing, Mildred, it is that, I mean, the education calendar, the Kenyan education calendar has also been affected by this election results, because students were supposed to report to school as of last week on Friday, that is the 11th, and then it was pushed to today. Then again, the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, went ahead and also pushed the opening day for schools to 18th of this month. So, I mean, the sooner the results are released, the better for Kenyan students, because the academic calendar of schools here in the country has been affected, and not only by the election but more so by the COVID-19 that affected not only Kenya but the entire world. So, Mildred, we'll continue bringing the ESC viewers of the NBS up to date with what is making the headlines when it comes to the Kenyan elections. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Brenda Radit. So that will definitely be coming through. There are just a few hundreds of thousands of verifications to be made before Kenya can officially get to find out who their next president is. And with me in studio, of course, I still have Mr. Joseph Kabuleta, a former presidential candidate right here in Uganda, and I also still do have a political analyst, Godba Tumosh, as we continue to look at what's happening in Kenya. Now, as we continue with this discussion, ladies and gentlemen, let's first of all take a very short break and return in just a bit. Good morning.
Whoever you're doing it for, we'll help you get it done. Simply. That's Africanacity. That's APSA.
New and improved Omo with a new look. An unbeatable stain removal. Omo. Unbeatable stain removal.
Hey guys, please let's have a brief meeting. See that? Calls, data, SMS, shareable among 5 people.
What?
And it includes free Airtel TV. Do you guys know what that means?
Means no worry.
Enjoy life worry-free with Airtel Smart Plans. Shareable among 5 people. Use every day and pay at the end of the month.
They've also added Showmax.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Fairway Hotel, a gem hidden in plain sight. With over 50 years of bringing people together. Top-rated restaurants. Personalized customer experiences. Luxurious accommodation. Surrounded by an oasis of lush gardens and fountains. For work or play. A lot has happened over the last 50 years. Come and rediscover Fairway Hotel. Welcome home. Defining Uganda's hospitality.
You know why Fanta goes really great with snacks? Because just like Fanta, snacking is colorful. Snacking isn't formal, which means no knives and forks. You don't even need to book a table for snacking. In fact, you don't need a table at all. Snacking is comfy and playful. Snacking is a tasty treat. That's why snacking is colorful. Snack with Fanta.
It's a full-time job to be a great parent or guardian. The decisions we make impact their lives forever. And getting a birth certificate is one of the most important ones. All you need to do is get a birth notification record stamped by a medical officer from the hospital where the baby was born or from the sub-county chief in case it occurred at home. Go to the NERA offices in your area and present the notification record, copy of parent's ID and bank payment slip of 5,000 Ugandan shillings for citizens and $40 for non-citizens. Fill NERA Form 3 while there and a birth certificate will be issued to you. Please note that birth certificates to refugees born in Uganda are free of charge. For more information, visit the NERA office closest to you or call 0800-211-700. This message is brought to you by NERA.
Hey guys, please let's have a brief meeting. See that? Calls, data, SMS, shareable among 5 people.
What?
And it includes free Airtel TV. Do you guys know what that means?
Means no worries.
Enjoy life worry-free with Airtel Smart Plans. Shareable among 5 people. Use every day and pay at the end of the month.
They've also added Showmax.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
All right. Welcome back. Thank you for keeping it NBS television. Still watching the Morning Breeze, and it's a topical discussion bringing you the latest of what's happening in and around. Of course, the discussion is Kenya, as we await to listen to the final announcement from the IEBC's Wafula Chebukati and who the president of Kenya is. It's supposed to be a 50% plus 1 or at least 25% out of the 24 of the 47 counties. So who will be getting those figures as is to be declared the president? I still have Mr. Godba Tumushawa and Mr. Joseph Kabuleta right here with me in studio. Godba, looking at many pundits have said that for Kenya it's never been an issue with the process to elections. It's always been peaceful in most of the cases, but the problem comes at the announcement, the post-election, which also did see us get into the unfortunate 2007 clashes. We've already seen also countries like America, announcing violence alerts or issuing violence alerts. We saw a number of people crossing back to Uganda. What are the factors that could help bring a peaceful after election? Because that is where everyone is looking at this point in time.
Mildred, let me just make a quick comment about 2007-2008 violence, because I think it's one point that is always raised in Kenya's transition.
Yeah.
I've always argued, and I could be wrong, that for me, having lived in Kenya during those last years of Moi, I actually saw how a regime can build conditions for election-related violence even many years after you've left. Okay. Because I believe that the 2007-2008 violence, the conditions for it were constructed not by Kibaki, but by Moi. Okay. And the elections were simply a trigger. So in the current situation, we have a country that really, one, that you have people who are committed who actually respect their citizens. Every time you hear Kenyan politicians talking, themselves. Yes, when you hear them talking to Kenyans. They don't talk at them. They talk to them. They engage them in a discourse. Kenya has been helped by the county government system, that you have fairly strong local government system called counties, and these governors. And these become moderating influences and begin to distribute centers of power. Now, when you come to the elections, first of all, the elections are organized, the campaigns are organized well. There is nobody who is being unfairly treated by the security forces, by the intelligence, by the police. So in other words, if you look at the way the campaigns have been done, you didn't see any of the candidates being harassed or their supporters being harassed. So even when they are tense, there is a sense of justice that, yeah, we have the opportunity to campaign and canvass for our candidates. Then you go to the voting day itself, which is really more or less like the final exam. I think that what the Kenyan elections have taught us is that we still have questions of how to manage the digital, the electronic and analog systems of voting and results transmission. Because I think what the IEBC has been dealing with now is more of the integrity of the transmission process of results. Because I think questions have been cast on, was the electronic system compromised? But I think we have to congratulate the IEBC that it has been able to say, no, okay, if there are any questions, let's bring the physical forms and then we compare. Again, it is to try to inspire confidence in the result. Now, when the results are announced, I think there are two things that will happen. One is that I project that one of the person who is not announced is going to concede, actually.
Concede?
Yes.
Of the two?
Yes, of the two.
I do not.
I want to project that one of them is going to concede.
That's for what reason? For the benefit of Kenya?
For the benefit of Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think. For the benefit of Kenya, because these guys, and you know, I have engaged with Kenyans in many different places, including, I used to participate in many of the international trade negotiations. You would be really inspired when they come to the meeting and say, we are all Kenyans. They all talk like Kenyans. Then for us, Ugandans, some of us would say we are civil society, the other ones, they are NRM, these ones are not pro-government. So you see a country that is beginning to feel like we are a country. And I think the politics, the way they have been conducting their campaigns, is also reinforcing that. The bottom line is that people will tend to love their country when they feel they are respected, when they are treated justly, when an election is conducted in a manner that gives dignity to the citizens, that you don't have to have a situation where you have over 100 people dead, others kidnapped, others in jail, for you to elect one guy to be a president.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's first of all cross over before I get back to Mr. Kabuleta, back to Kanare Mugome for his update for now. Kanare, what is the latest from the Tally Center? How many more do we have to wait for with regard to verification before we can officially say that it's now the next address will be an announcement?
Mildred, out of 291, we're only waiting for verification of results from 28 constituencies. It means that at least over 85% of the results have been verified, and we're just waiting for only 28 as we speak right now. Of course, the IEB's officials have been working in shifts and trying to make sure that even Transnight, they're working. I went to bed where only verified 61%. And now, I woke up in the morning when the threshold had been hit, which is above 85%. So now we're waiting to see what more. Actually, there are more results that have been verified, but have not been, of course, put on the portal. We're waiting for when all that information will be uploaded. I think we should be above 90%. So he who is also telling individually among the candidates between Raila and Ruto, I think they already know where they stand, just that all that verification is important. It's important because remember that the results have to be verified at each and every step, and an error report has to be produced. Why it is important, for example, the last 2 days we saw some votes erroneously awarded to some candidates, and that figure had to be deducted. We're talking about 10,000 votes that had been awarded to William Ruto. When a journalist here who was compiling results also saw it, he red flagged it, and they had to deduct those votes. And IEBC came here and said the votes had been erroneously awarded. I think it was a mathematical problem. So those errors are bound to happen. That's why the verification is important. Now, what happens here is that there are different forms, 34A, 34B, and 34C. As I conclude, let me just try to explain why those forms are important and why they are named that way. Now, 34A is a form where all results from each polling station, the results are recorded on a form called 34A. Now, each polling station has a corresponding constituency. For example, one constituency can have about 1,000 polling stations. Now, that means that there's going to have 1,034A forms. Now, each constituency out there are about 291. Each constituency has produced results of those corresponding polling stations. Now, of the 291 results tallied from every constituency, they are recorded in a form called 34B. Now, that 34B is what the presiding officer comes here with to try to make sure that it corresponds with what was uploaded on the publicly accessed IEBC portal. Now, when Chebukati is going to announce a winner, the results from 291 constituencies are recorded on a form called 34C. That's why they are named A, B, and C. That document that Chebukati Wafula is going to read from results is what is called 34C. And that form has not yet been generated because 34B forms are not yet complete, are not yet at 100%. But we do expect by midday or maybe 2 p.m. all those results will be in. Also, as you can see my background, you see that the anti-riot police has been reinforced here. Also, when you go outside the National Tally Center, there is security all over. Trying to make sure that peace is kept, and the IEBC has made sure that every now and then, even on the entry of this National Tally Center, you go through levels and hierarchies of verification processes to make sure that at least you're not inside here by mistake. The only people that are allowed here are the press. You also have agents of different political parties, and then officials from the IEBC. Yesterday there was a problem that politicians were allowed inside here. You could see one politician dragging an IEBC official out of the National Tally Center. It was quite chaotic, but now calm has been restored. But also access to the National Tally Center has been really, really strict. You have to have these particular identification passes. One is one that is for accreditation, and then the other is a security pass, which also has a card for access here that has, of course, a QR code that is scanned. So you have to go through a number of verification processes for you to be able to get in here. Media largely has been given freedom to film whatever they want. They have not been restricted, and I think they have a little bit of privilege to be in each and every corner of this National Tally Center, and that's why it is important, like Godba said, that the IEBC should be given credit for managing a process that many Kenyans feel is transparent. Back to you, Mildred.
All right, thank you very much, Kanari Mugume. We await the final tally, and we believe that you will be right on hand to give us that. Time is really first spent, but coming to you, Mr. Kabuleta, what lessons do we take from Kenya moving forward? Because 4 years from now, we'll be going into the same kind of activity.
First of all, I think we have a lot of problems with this electronic thing, because I don't think we are in a position in Uganda where we can actually have an electronic system and it is as transparent as it is. Now, those people
Would
in Kenya...
Would the manual be that?
It's better. It's better in as much as it has all its issues. First of all, you'd have problems with internet connectivity. Second, in some places you even have problems with power and the basic things, really. And if you are going to have polling stations, and if you've been to some of those polling stations up there, like I have, you know that nobody is going to be there with anything electronic. That's the reality, not even a smartphone. So somehow we are going to go back to our Bensons. Only the management of those Bensons should be better. That's the first thing. And then also, it has to be said that the IEBC said that there have been over 200 attempts to hack into their portal.
Okay.
From either side. Okay, they don't know who, but 200 attempts to hack into their portal. Can we be that secure? That those are those which have been thwarted. I don't know how many were successful, if any. But imagine that where you're doing something electronic and people know they can hack in and change results. Now, but the thing is, if they change results in hacking, even to what end? Because nobody, as you've heard Canada there saying, nobody is going to be declared winner unless what is on the portal matches what is, you know, on the real form, on the hard copy. So why would they do that? Now, that's where you have to start suspecting, because what happens is if you hack into the portal, which the media has been, broadcasting, and it gives you, let's say, 55%, let's say with 80% of the vote counted. Then you pull a red carpet at KICC and proclaim yourself winner, and your supporters start celebrating. Now you make it very difficult for the IEBC to come and say, no, actually, you're not the winner, because now that can cause real bloodshed.
Yeah.
That's why they kind of stopped it and said, now stop this, because you know that hacking can only give you a partial victory. But you know how you're going to use that partial victory to go and force the arm of the IEBC. Because usually in those cases, and we saw even a case in America in 2000, where there was a lot of issues of George Bush and Al Gore. But when it gets to some stage, people say, for the sake of the country, just concede.
Yeah.
Now, that's some of the... and then also, on social media, there's been from both parties that somebody is trying to rig. This one is rigging here. There have been more votes, and I was seeing figures, real figures, of the total votes cast being more than the number of registered voters in a constituency, and it's real. And you go and check, and so you say, oh, this can be a bit. How did that happen? Now that's where you need the 34Bs going down there. But in case you don't wait for the 34Bs, somebody was going to proclaim themselves the winner last week. And that would have made it very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
So I think from Uganda's standpoint, especially since I've been to some of those polling places where, elections are actually votes are cast, the reality is that perhaps we are more than 5 years away. Perhaps we should start thinking electronic in 2031. But right now, we are nowhere there. We shall still go back to our Bensons, only that we hope that they shall be better managed than they've been before.
In just a minute, as we get to close this, Godba, what lessons do we carry to 4 years from now, 2026?
My biggest lesson is for Uganda and all the countries within this land that you can...
Something. So it all starts